Okay, cool. So I'm recording now. Perfect. So missed 3 pairs. It's okay. I'm sure Aiden will go over that in so many Sundays, but at least I caught myself early. For CAD Swiss franc. Remember, I don't know if you guys were on last week's live session, you would have known that all the buys from these levels that we were looking at here and especially down here, we really wanted to continue to take this long up until this point of supply, because that would be the region in which sells could start to enter the market. And then we would take over and then look for trendline liquidity to be run, coming down into our higher time frame daily areas of interest. So we can see here, we have equal lows, 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch on the higher time frame. We have demand here, imbalance here, in and around this LPOR. LPOR is last point of return. Last point of return meaning the last point which price could come to before it breaks structure to the downside. So that's what I'll be looking for. I'm looking for potential shorts into these levels to start the week. But again, we're on a rally right now. Could we push higher? Yes, this is an intermediate level of supply, but we could come all the way back up into higher time frame structure here, 76492. So I'd love to see how we react to start the week in and around this price point. But if we show bullish signs, I would probably like this level of demand to be met. So around 7518, just continuing with market structure all the way throughout. So I know that we talked about last Sunday sells from this point of supply here. Why? Because this is a key level of supply up in here. I know it's quite vague, but this was supply. This high did actually run this wick. So this is a sponsored move before making the overall lower low. We pulled back up into it. And what really created the setup for me was not just because this was supply. I never put a sell limit on this. I waited and I saw that we were building liquidity. We had a buy to sell 3 in the morning EST, so this London session open. And then we made a move and we broke counter trend. We pulled back, we repriced, filling inefficiency, and we continued lower. So I said that this was an area of supply that I would like to take shorts from. However, I also noted this level of demand here, right in here. Why is this also demand? I hedged myself. I don't do that often, but sometimes, it's important because I like shorts. There are many confluences in here for shorts. So I did sell it, but I also bought it here because we broke counter trend structure. We failed to make the lower low upon a pullback, and we made a higher high. That's 1 drive, pullback, 2 drive, pullback, potential 3rd drive, and that's what we actually got. We can see that this is the last selling volume within the market structure here that produced this higher high. Imbalance occurred right here. We reacted from it perfectly, pretty much to the T, pushed up, failed to make that lower low, broke a counter trend structure, making that higher high. So now we're bullish, higher and lower time frame. But we have so much confluence for sell. So I did sell it, but I also at the same time bought it at this demand, was in a little bit of profit, stops were below this low, so it didn't top me out, pushed right back up, and we just continued. So I lost on the sells, but I'm still in the buys. That's how you can properly hedge yourself. So again, nothing very clear. We're entering into sell territory, but I also continue to like the buys here, and maybe we can push back up into that 765 level, back up into market structure to fill up some of this imbalance. So that could be on the table for this week. Chef JPY, we are looking for overall longs, but right now we're in this pullback phase where we should still be looking for shorts at least down into 138, really into 137, 7950 to retest market structure, potentially lower into imbalance. So where should we be looking for sells for the here and now? Well, last Sunday we were talking about this level here. We reacted from this level, okay? Originally, we could be looking for buys from our sponsored candle here. This is not just because it's the last sell to buy. A sponsored candle is not just the last sell to buy or the last buy to sell in a sequence. It has to take some form of liquidity. So it did here, and it wasn't that pretty, but it swept a lot of this liquidity. This is Asian session, okay? This was all Asian session. Right in here, this is 3 in the morning. Again, market open for London, manipulation, sweeping the low, and then continuing. So that was technically a sponsored move. I would have liked it if it swept the low here. It just didn't. But still, nonetheless, that still works for me. we should have naturally expected a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. We did get that reaction. So I was definitely expecting a higher high, but we stopped here and we retested this supply zone and we fell and made the lower low. So that really gave me the conviction that we're now in pullback territory, higher time frame. So the structure has now shifted bearish to the lower time frame, but now even though we're still bullish higher time frame, we're now in this pullback phase, back down into discount territory. So that's what the objective should be now. The objective should not be, trying to look for buys until we hit this level down here, 137.7950. Because we had one drive, we failed to make that higher high and made a lower low. So now we're in pullback territory. So I want to get back up into premium, either in this inefficiency level here, 141.4, or this intermediate swing point here. Well, it was demand. Now it's supply because, we pushed up, pushed down, created demand, pushed up, pushed down, reacted, was supposed to make a higher high for market structure, but we made a lower low. So this flips to supply now. So I would like to see a run to start the week and then push up into it and then fall into our objective. That would be my bias. However, what if we come down here first? If we come down into our objective first, I won't be looking for buys upon a retracement into that level because the objective was already met. So that's why it's so important to do top-down analysis to get your objectives in place before looking at lower time frame areas of interest. Because how do you know if you don't do top-down and you think in the back of your mind this is still valid and then it pushes back up to the upside, you're like, why did I lose? Well, because we already hit our higher time frame objective. So that's what I'll be looking for Chef JPY. Obviously, we talked about the DXY. Euro AUD, I don't really see much on Euro AUD at the moment. We haven't hit our higher time frame goal yet, that 156 level. I want to get back up into premium, back up into this supply zone, higher time frame. We have a lot of imbalance. We haven't reached that yet. So we have broken structure, lower time frame, but higher time frame, we're still bullish. So we can still have that 147.50, 1.47 level on the table. We've talked about Euro AUD for a while. There's so much confluence in here. There's demand, accumulation and demand, expansion, 50% imbalance came into it to the T, ascending liquidity taken, sell to buy sponsored move, expansion. We left imbalance here. So I was hoping we would get down into our key levels, our objective levels. We didn't. So that's why I still think that this is valid. Even if we come down lower, I still wouldn't classify this as a break of structure because this, in my opinion, didn't hit the objective yet. This is the objective. This would just be classified as a liquidity bump for potential longs, right? So we're getting that overall pullback now. I'm interested in buys from 1.4750, 1.47. Same thing goes with Euro NZD. And then we broke counter trend structure to the downside, right? We're making higher highs, higher lows, but we failed to come into our higher time frame objective. This is supply. We are going to come up into it, whether it be now or in the next couple of months. I don't know. Who knows? But this is still an objective that will be met. 1.7, 1.71, really, anywhere in this blue box. Because we ran liquidity, and then we pushed right back down into the range, made that lower low. You can see here we reacted off of demand in here. Failed to make the higher high, made the lower low, flips to supply now. Haven't retested that level. This is a key level. So again, we've been talking about Euro NZD down at 1.63 for quite some time. There's so much going on. This is, well, I guess I can go over it really, really quickly. Very briefly, for those of you who do not know, and if you don't, you probably haven't been watching our lives. This is Asian session between end of April. Asian session had the run. Buy, entice the buyers, come back down, suit their stop losses, entice the sellers with these equal lows here. Accumulation that took liquidity, had the counter trend BOS, took that liquidity, expanded, had a lot of imbalance. So this is a pure institutional move. This is, if anything's institutional, it's this move right here. So I said, okay, I'm taking my position off of really 1.62 for that psych level, and there's really nothing in here that we can play off of, maybe besides imbalance, 50% imbalance, or the open of this sponsored move. So that was around that 1.62 level. So I took a trade and I'm currently out now. Once the counter trend way over here was broken, I'm like, okay, now we could see pullbacks back down into our level. And we could easily come down and hit me break even. So that's when I'm like, okay, through experience or through, if you were new and you didn't know this, you would have probably have kept the trade open still because we haven't hit our objective yet, which, you know, is not the worst idea in the world. However, we have that understanding that one, we have a lot of liquidity down here that we're now running, but two, we're getting into this territory where we originally entered before. So why leave all this profit on the table? I got out right in here around 650. So took a lot of profit off the table. We have equal lows, and that's exactly where we want to be entering. 1.63, maybe even a little lower at this 1 hour level of demand, because we had that sell, taking liquidity to buy into that objective 1.62. We expanded, we repriced a little bit and then expanded again. So that 163, that's psych level, and then this hourly demand stops would really go below this low here. So that would act as the liquidity run from these equal lows that were made prior to the expansion again. And we can just see so much more equal lows here and here that we're now running. So at a 4 hour time frame, we're still in a downtrend. Now, I don't really see anything of interest right now. Last week, we did take a short from this level. There were two areas of supply. Once we broke the counter trend, obviously, here and here. So I set two limits. One of them was hit, the other one was not. We deleted this one, and we're in big profit here so far. I think about like 150, 200 pips. Yeah, about 157. So still looking to go lower, take profits 163. I don't really see too much right now. If we get back up and we pull back, then maybe this would still be valid because we haven't taken liquidity and hit our objective yet. So I'm looking for shorts this week for sure into 163, but there's no pertinent setup at the moment. There's really nothing of interest in which I like. Euro GBP, honestly, I'm not going to be touching this for a little while, just because, you know, we are still bullish, but we did run a lot of liquidity. So could we continue short? I mean, this is pure accumulation. I would like to see higher prices. But again, buying from my areas of interest is really just in the middle of the range. Where's the range? It's really right here, here to here. We're just kind of buying right in the middle of it. This is between here and here. So that's just what I said about, maybe it was what? One of these three pairs up here, AJ, AU, I forget which one it was, about being hesitant about selling because it was in the middle of the range. That could be the case for EG, because all this stuff occurred a long time ago. Not to say that it's invalid, but we've already been making higher highs and higher lows since. So why wouldn't it already come down into these objectives if it was valid at that time? That's what I meant. So continuing to sell is what I'm going to be looking to do, at least down into 84175 and 8390. 8390 is a 1 hour time frame sponsored candle. This is a sponsored candle that happened at 4 a.m. Eastern time on May 3rd. Sell to buy, we broke the counter trend structure. This was the overall pullback that came down into previous market structure. This again was Asian session. Buy, fake out the buyers, right? Entice the buyers, come back down, take their stops. Attack the sellers, accumulate lower time frames like a quadruple doji. Broke counter trend structure. After the accumulation, that's why we didn't come down and sweep this low. We had already expected that we wouldn't make a lower low, and we were right. We had the sell to buy at 4 in the morning. We came down and tested about 50% of the accumulation, and then we broke and made a higher high, and we've been bullish ever since. So this is still, I would still be interested and keen on 8390. However, we also had this low here, didn't quite hit that level, that formed this area of demand, 1, 2, 3 pin pattern. We had the slowdown in price, the push up, failure to make the lower low, and then the expansion back up. We have relatively equal lows in here. And I say this every single day, we oftentimes create liquidity prior to coming into our overall objective regions. So 841750, it's also the imbalance, and 8390 are going to be levels in which I will be looking for buys for this week. So still sells are valid at this point until those two levels are met, and then I'll be looking for buys. I'm not going to place buy limits right here. I want to do a little more confirmation first. But if you were on last week's live, You would know that we were in profit on this candle. I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago as well. We've been screaming this sponsored move. And this is not just a last buy to sell candle. I know you're saying, well, if you're bullish, why wouldn't you be looking for a higher high? Well, we were looking for sort of both. The structure is definitely bullish. So you wouldn't be looking to place trades at supply regions when you're bullish, because you'd naturally expect the higher high, right, to take out that previous high. However, this was, I wouldn't say a lucky trade. I mean, kind of lucky. We did get lucky here, but this was a valid region of price. This was a sponsored move. And we know about sponsored candles that they, one, have little to no wick. Two, have a violent reaction right back to the downside, which is exactly what we got. Three, sweep liquidity. We swept this prior high. Okay, so I kind of took a shot. I wouldn't call it a shot in the dark, but it was a little more risky than normal, because naturally, what would you expect? Higher high, higher low, and then a higher high. You're absolutely right. But we did get in at 8678, so pretty much to the T. And then we pushed back to the downside. I thought, okay, well, if we're going to make a higher high now, we're going to do it now and make higher high, because counter trend, high, low, potential high. But we didn't. We ended up pushing to the downside, breaking the counter trend. So I'm like, okay, this flips to supply now. I entered at 8.6 psychological level into the supply, and then we're in 2 trades. So 1 and 2, huge profit. So I'm going to be looking for further sells. There's really nothing of interest to me. There's really nothing clear. If we're going to be finding a sell entry, I mean, this is just in the middle of the range. This is really nothing. This is a potential. This is definitely supply. So is this. That's supply. This is imbalance. So there's multiple regions. I would look at these 3 regions, and maybe what we can do is if price does come up into here, we can look for some sort of liquidity, buy to sell into this level, sweep some liquidity, break counter trend structure, and then look for the pullback for shorts, because that would be the confirmation needed to take a short. Because you have confluence, smart money confluences, but then the real confluence is the reaction from the anticipated supply level. And obviously we know we haven't reached objective yet. So as long as we don't hit these objectives first before pulling back into entry, we can still take shorts. So guys, if you're uncertain as to what levels are valid and which ones are not, no one knows for 100% sure, especially when we're just pushing price like this. Now, if it's something as, I wouldn't say easy, but if it's something like this, then you would know that this is valid because, well, reaction from the anticipated level, break of counter trend structure. This was originally demand because we sold, swept liquidity, push right back up. This creates demand. We had a reaction from demand, failed, makes supply, right? So this was already confirmed, but these aren't confirmed. These are just little buy candles before continuations. So you would probably want to see reactions from these levels for some sort of lower time frame break of structure, liquidity run before looking at further sells. And I will be doing a YouTube video this weekend, or I would say next weekend, so in a week from yesterday, that describes how to properly determine whether a setup is valid versus one that's invalid. I think that's a big problem in today's trading. Many people don't know where to be placing their entries. And when they do, and then they lose, why are they losing? Well, it's because their levels aren't valid. So I'm going to be going over which ones are and which ones aren't. Obviously, not every single one that can be confirmed, quote unquote, valid doesn't mean it's 100% going to work out. Obviously, the Forex game is never 100% certain, but it just gives you more of a highly probable area of interest to be looking for a trade. I think that'll help you guys a lot too. So again, nothing at the moment, nothing pertinent on EG. Euro JPY. Remember, we discussed this level last week. We discussed this area of demand. Again, it's very similar to a lot of these XXX-JPY pairs. We have a low that we didn't come down into demand yet, right? Same with AJ. We have a low that didn't come down to demand. GJ, we have a low that didn't come down into demand. So we have these levels, and they're probably going to act as liquidity runs, which this was, because we're still technically bullish. We're just seeing more of a deeper retracement. And we can see that this low here, we didn't tap into this level. So I really want to be coming down further into this demand. Higher high, higher low, higher high. What's interesting about this, shoulder, head, shoulder, it's like a skewed head and shoulders, sell, right when it broke the neckline, people were selling, nope, right back to the upside, retail loses. So this would be classified as demand. If we stop right now and continue to pull back, I will be looking for shorts in between this wick and this wick. This is the imbalance zone because these two candles were bearish, offered sells, right? The sells were offered. These are the last two buying candles prior to the imbalanced move. So between this wick and this wick here is the imbalanced area. So maybe 140.5, 141 would be valid if we get back up into this level. However, if we come down anywhere in this blue box first, before coming up into this level, this is no longer valid because this is the overall objective, right? But what happens if this occurs? And just kind of answer this in your head. This is a tricky question. What happens if we do this? Or actually, I'll do that. What happens if we do that? This is something that I wouldn't expect, but could still happen. We push into objective, we pull back up and still come into our overall, pullback zone that we were originally looking to sell from the overall pullback phase. And then we keep going. That just means that this is not a valid demand. And how do I know it's not valid? Well, I don't know. I'm assuming it is valid just based off of confluence and structure. But if we react off this level and push down, then I will still be looking for buys, maybe just a little bit lower. I don't know, so somewhere in there. But that could happen. But overall, how you should position your mindset is to say, where is my objective, higher time frame? Where am I coming into on a higher time frame? Well, this is really where we should be looking for longs to form a higher high overall, right? We haven't come into that yet. So we would like to push down into it. If we come down into it first, then we have to automatically assume that we're going to be making a higher high next because it's just structure. Higher high, higher low, higher high. So everything in here is all invalid because we should be looking at now forming that higher high. Hey guys, can you please mute your mics if you don't mind? Thank you. So this is still valid until we come down into here. Euro USD, we finally hit that 1.0340 level. This was talked about for quite some time now. We finally have taken that higher time frame liquidity away. So now it gets a little tricky. And that's what I said at the beginning of the live session. This week is going to be a little tricky because bias is going to be hard to determine because we're still technically bearish, but we took higher time frame liquidity. So could we have some sort of reaction overall pullback maybe? Sure, we could because that objective was taken care of. So it's all going to come down to the day-by-day setups. I can't really give you a bias on this at the moment. All I can say is we did come into our original level from last Sunday, had a great trade. So if you guys took advantage of that, I called this out on live last Sunday. You would be in profit. You would be out already. I am out of this trade because they hit the objective. So there's really nothing at the moment, in my opinion. Euro CAD. Wondering if I should go over this. Last week, we were trading in and around here, I believe. Something like that. We still have these equal lows. We were in these two trades and this one. We called out in VIP. If you guys were in VIP, you would know. We already reached that 132 level. Well, now we did. On last Sunday, when we were on our live, I was like, this is the region we're going to come to. We're going to hit 1.32. And that's exactly what we did. We swept liquidity. When we came into that objective, liquidity here, imbalance, accumulation, lower time frame, this area of demand was the objective. So now we've already come into it. We're still technically really bearish at the moment, but we could be looking for reactions to go long. So at this point, there's really not much to talk about because, there's no setup. I would like to see, if we already go long, I would like to see just some form of accumulation, maybe liquidity, break of counter trend, and then look for that, the perfect aerial setup, liquidity run, right time of day, break counter trend structure, pull back, mitigate, and continue. So right now there's nothing, in my opinion. GBP AUD. This is interesting. So higher time frame, we're in a range, right? We're not making higher highs and we're not making lower lows. We're kind of just trading within this range. So it's a little bit tricky as well. However, if we are to go long, I would like the imbalance here at 1.7373 to be filled. Okay, this is really the last selling volume before the expansion. We have tons of imbalance in here. So I do expect last week's low to be taken. This is last week's low. As we go to the weekly time frame, we can easily see that right there. So I'd like this wick to be filled because oftentimes wicks are filled in momentum. I want this to be cleared. So further downside is still expected. And this imbalance is my target. Doesn't mean I'm going to be looking. I mean, you can look for longs once we hit this level. But what I meant to say was I'm not going to be placing buy limits. So don't get confused when I say a higher time frame objective. Don't get that confused for entries in the opposite direction, meaning long. Put that in your mind that we're probably going to come into those targets. So that means we should be looking for trades in this overall direction short, take profit at this level, and then maybe look for confirmations to potentially place long orders, but we shouldn't be placing buy limits from that level. We could easily just continue short. So I like that as targets. We haven't come into it yet, so further shorts are expected, in my opinion. We swept this high here. We can see just by a couple pips, probably like 5 to 10 pips, we swept this. Okay. Then we ended up falling to the downside, breaking this counter trend structure here. Okay. So run the liquidity, make a lower low. If we get a pullback, I want to see another lower low into our area of interest. So lower time frame, I have a couple levels. Well, originally, we could see in here, higher high, higher low, overall pullback, higher low. We were expecting a higher high. We got the higher high, we swept liquidity, and then we pulled back into demand, and we failed to make that higher high again. So this turns to supply, and that's exactly what we had because we made that lower low subsequently. We pulled back into that area of supply, and we fell again, making the lower low, not having come into objective first. Now we're starting to pull back. So if we get back up into this level right here, 1.7675, let's call it, that will be an area I'll be looking to sell from for continuation short into 17373. So what are my confluences? Well, liquidity run, failure to make the higher high, lower low, downtrend overall. Objective has not been met yet. Supply taken care of, check. Liquidity run, lower low, check. Liquidity forming, good. Imbalance, repricing event, supply, because what do we have? Low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, failure to make that higher high, as I mean, obviously, because we came into supply here, but from a market structure standpoint, you'd be looking for a higher high, and then you fell lower low. So this turns from demand to supply. So that would be the valid region price. So I'm looking for a price, and I'll chop around a little bit, may take sell side liquidity first, and then buy side liquidity, and then take it again, sell side. So something like that, but ultimately coming back up into that level, I'll be looking for sells. Let's see, GBP CAD, how many do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, I'm gonna do up until GBP USD, so I'm gonna do 3 more, and then I'm gonna take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and finish the rest. 4-hour time frame in GBP CAD, scroll out. So our overall objective is 1.54. Okay, why is that? Well, we have to zoom out and do top down here. Well, we're still quite bearish, right? The structure is still bearish. We're still pushing down. Obviously, you can see that. We're making lower lows, lower highs. We're below the daily 50. We're still pushing short. Let's scroll all the way over to our most recent area. So this is kind of accumulation before this huge expansion. So I want to be looking at where we could come into. If we are to go long, where could we come into first? We could easily just continue short and take out this low and just continue to die because we're still on a bearish trend, right? We could do that. But have we reached objective to look for longs. We haven't yet because, well, I'll show you. So in here, we can see this low, okay? This low was taken out by this low, probably by like 10 pips or so, something like that. 4 pips, what do I know? 4 pips. And then we ended up accumulating, and then that's what started the whole expansionary move, okay? So our eyes really should go in this general vicinity. What's going on in here? Well, on the daily time frame, when we took that higher time frame low, this is 2013. We took the low from 2011. Okay. So we pushed up, we failed to make that lower low, and then we broke and made the higher high, clearing the structure. We pushed back down, but we never came into our imbalance right here. I'll just get rid of the drawings. Actually, just extend that over so you can see wick right here and wick right here. There's imbalance here. The imbalance is a part of that 1.54. Look at where my cursor is and look where price is, 1.54. So I want price, this is the psychological level for this area. So not only do we have confluence surrounding higher time frame area of demand, we have imbalance, we have psych level, we have this low that we're going to come and take. Liquidity, it's going to act as liquidity. So if I just make a line there, so now we can see it all the way across. We still haven't come into it. So that's going to be the liquidity in which we want to take, but then 1.54 will be the imbalance higher time frame in which we want to come into. Okay, so let's scale in here. Well, we're looking like we're accumulating. We took these equal lows. We took the low, we reacted, we broke counter trend structure, we swept the liquidity here coming into our demand perfectly from Friday. We mitigated at 5 in the morning Eastern time. This was 2 days ago. So we got Friday, 5 in the morning, London session manipulation time. And this was formed 2 days prior on the 6th. This is, I believe, Wednesday. And it swept liquidity 8 in the morning. This is New York session open. Time and price, guys. So crucial. That's another thing I'll be talking about within whether it's invalid or valid for setup is time and price. Higher time frame, we haven't reached that objective yet, 1.54. So we're going to be looking for shorts into it. However, since we have accumulated and we broke counter trend, I wouldn't be surprised if we went long. And if we do go long first, then 2 levels of supply will be valid. Guys, please mute your mics. So to make long story short, very quickly, I'll go over like what's going on. This wick right here was supply. You just take my word for it. I've already marked this all up. We came up into it, we pushed down, made that lower low, created ascending liquidity, pushed up into that region of supply because that came into this supply. We fell, broke counter trend structure. This was our demand level, now flipped to supply. On a lower time frame, we had the reaction from the demand right in here. There's like a 3-hour candle that was bullish. And that's why we came up into that exact region, pretty much to the T, and then we fell. We fell, made a low, failed to make that higher high. Obviously, we drove lower, making that lower low. So these 2 areas become supply zones. We can see that this push up never came up into the supply. So this is still valid here and here. So if we come up into these levels, 1.578 and 1.59, look where that lines up, guys. The open of that supply is perfectly with that psych level. 1.59, we should be looking for sells from these regions of price. Now, if we come into this level first, and then we start to push back up, these are no longer valid. However, for the here and now, what could happen, and obviously if we just sell off, then when we sell off, there's no trade. But if we open and then, we kind of make a higher high here and then we start to pull back, I would like to be buying because we accumulated, taking liquidity, right? Breaking the counter trend structure, coming down into demand mitigating, higher high, higher low. Oh, got a burp, excuse me. Higher high, higher low, and then a higher high is formed. If that happens, I would be looking for pullbacks. Well, if we come up into this level, I'll be selling first, but if we don't, then this is still valid for longs because the objective wasn't met yet. Then we pull back and then look for some sort of demand to come into for another buy. That's what I would be looking for, right? So it's all just dependent upon how the market opens and what we do to start the week. Obviously, guys, if you're in VIP, you're gonna be kept up to date with everything, so don't even worry about it. But you can mark off these levels just so you know, and you can practice on your own. So that's GBP CAD. If we come into here first, these cells are off the table. If We come into here first. The sells are valid because that's the objective. Could be buying counter trend if we don't come up into this level first and we find a buy setup. That's GCAD. G-Chef, I'm not going to go over this. There's nothing to go over here. I don't know why I had that marked up. GBP USD. Okay, this will be the last one. I'll take a few questions, and then I'm going to break for like 5 minutes and then come back and finish the rest. So GU, it's quite interesting because remember, Euro USD took that higher time frame liquidity. Remember, from 1.0340. However, the dollar is still bullish, higher time frame. And EU could easily continue to sell off. We're obviously expecting AU to come into its region of price. I believe it's 6680, if I'm not mistaken, before potentially going long. So, guys, kind of take that into consideration. How can I just spent you guys out like so many different price points. I just know these price points like the back of my hand. You should be able to do the same. You know, you should be able to look at any pair here. I could be like, okay, where is Euro GBP going? Where is AUD USD going? Tell me the exact price without even looking at the chart. That's something that professional traders like have. They're able to do that. And if you know your levels and do proper analysis, you should overall know exactly where higher time frame level should be. So, you know, get in the habit of doing that. Practice. You know, go through the list and be like, okay, I'm looking for AJ to come into, you know, 93.5 or something like that. AU 668, and just go through it. It's very important that you do that. Trains your brain. But anyways, getting back to it. Overall, we are still bearish. Okay, there's no objective per se, really. I mean, we could potentially be coming lower. I mean, the imbalance was already filled. This is technically demand, so I guess you could say this would be an objective region. But we have to also consider where we're coming into. Look at this sensitivity. Low, low, low support, breaking support, push right back up. This is COVID, remember? Push right back up, make that higher high, pull back into that same support. So could we go long? We could. However, it's just a little tricky right now, guys. I don't know how to explain it. We're still bearish, but we could potentially go long. I guess I would classify this as the demand here. So maybe we could look for price to come up down into 1.17155 or maybe 1.18. I guess 1.18 would be valid. Just extending that over. You know, further downside would be expected. But lower time frame, let's see what's going on. Remember we talked about this distribution. We talked about this distribution, and we had imbalance as we broke and created a lower low following this whole distribution. And I said when we were trading in here towards the end of June that I would like to see a pullback up into what was demand and now supply for then continuations. I would say that if we got back up into that level, it would still be valid. However, again, it's kind of in the middle of the range here because we've already been making lower lows as we've been going. So we'd have to look for some sort of confirmation. But to continue with market structure, lower low, lower high, lower low, we're looking for a lower high now. We broke in the counter trend here. We've closed above this high. So now we're in pullback territory, right? Pullback to the upside. So I have two levels, our last buy to sell region, right? 1.2084. And then this intermediate level of supply, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, failure to make the higher high, lower low, flips to supply. So that 1.21 low, looking for shorts, okay? Lower time frame. So much going on. So maybe it was the hour. They can start up the hour. Okay, cool. Yeah, low here, lower high, lower low. We pushed up, failed to make any sort of lower low, kind of created this area of demand, and that was prevalent after we created the higher high. So once we created the higher high and broke in the counter trend structure, I looked down here, I'm like, okay, this is unmitigated demand. That's exactly what we came into. We swept this low here, liquidity, coming into the demand. It's more specifically this 15-minute, maybe it was lower than that, maybe a 10-minute, heck, it could have been 5 minutes. I don't remember. I've done so much analysis. Really, here was the lower time frame demand level, and that's exactly what we came into to the T. That's why I have the different color. Then we accumulated lower time frame in here, had a low, high, low, failure to make the lower low, higher high, broke in the counter trend after the reaction from our initial level. this 5 minute becomes a demand. We pushed into it nicely, make a higher high. When we zoom out, we can see that now this 15 minute becomes the new demand. So many people would ask, well, you were just on the 5 minute, why'd you go to the 15 to draw this? Well, again, nothing, you can't just take a trade off of the time frame you wish to, meaning just because you say, okay, well, I'm just going to trade the 5 minute. Well, in this case, the 5 minute wasn't very clear. I mean, yeah, you can consider this right here a nice area of demand. Sure, that's demand. There you go. That would have been a nice entry. But in here, you may have drawn this as demand from the start here, which in all reality isn't the worst thing in the world. But if I just zoom out to the 15 minute higher time frame, then I can see it more clearly, the sell to buy. So that's why I draw it up on the 15. But then right in here, you wouldn't think anything in here is a demand. But if I go down to the 5 minute, then you would be able to see it nicely. So that's why you have to flick through all the time frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all like everything. So next, we make the higher high, we push down, tap into that, and we retested some imbalance and continued. So I will be continuing to look for buys because we're in this counter trend uptrend and we haven't hit that objective yet. If we come up into these two levels first, there will be no buying on my part. They will only be looking to sell because then we can continue with the higher time frame target, which is really, I guess, down into here. Higher time frame trend, low, high, low, high, low. That's what we would be expecting. But we haven't hit this objective yet. So let's see what we can take advantage of. What has already been mitigated, what hasn't been mitigated? Everything in here has been mitigated. Mitigation, 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 mitigation. Good. Now, this was the low that produced this high. This was the low that produced this high. This low produced this high. This low produced this high. Why not this high? Because this didn't break this high. This high is not a higher high. This is the higher high. So now it's not here, that's the range. It's here from this low, because this is the low that produced the higher high in the sequence. So this becomes your range between this high and this low. So technically, we could come all the way back down, sweep this low, come into here further, and still maintain our structure. So any buying that goes on here, just the stop loss probably has to go below here. That's where you can place your stop loss. That's how you know where to place stop losses and stuff like that. We have descending liquidity. If we come down, maybe London session, New York session tomorrow morning, this 5 minute level could be of interest because we have equal lows. So we could easily take that liquidity, sell to buy into that 5 minute time frame, look for pullbacks, continuations. You could be buying in here. There's also the imbalance between this wick and this wick you could be buying from. And ultimately, even if we come down below this wick, we can still be looking for buys in here. So potentially 3 areas of interest: this candle here, this imbalance, and this 5 minute demand zone. Because at any point in time, whether we react here, here, or anywhere in here, it's still an overall pullback in the market before continuing. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, right? But again, we need to be looking for buys before coming up into this level. If we just push up into it to start the week, this is no longer on the table. We should just be then selling and looking for overall sells. So hopefully this starts to make sense to you all, and you can pair this with your own analysis. I would highly recommend doing your own analysis prior to coming on these live sessions, because then you can see if it's similar to what you already have, maybe what's different with what I have than what you have, and maybe like going back to your analysis and looking at maybe where you potentially went wrong in your analysis, or, it doesn't mean my analysis is correct over yours. It just means that you could have not have seen something that maybe I did, and then you could fix your analysis based upon this live session, right? So be looking for buys from these levels. All right, guys, I'm going to take a couple questions. If you have any, if not, that's cool. I'm going to just take a break for 5 minutes, go get a drink of water, and then I will be back for the remainder of the pairs. I will say that we are nearing the end of our summer program session. We only have, I think, like 8 or 9 spots available left before we're shutting down for the summer and working with the clients that we already have. So if you are interested in kind of like taking your trading to the next level and really understanding this stuff as we do, and wanting to work with us one-on-one, feel free to go to our website and book a call with us. We'd love to speak with you. We only have a limited number of spots left until we break for the summer and continue working with who we have. And then we'll try to open it back up for more people at the end of fall, towards the winter time later this year. So only a few spots remain. Guys, do you have any questions about what I'm going over? Anything that's confusing? Just a general question about life? Anything you guys got?
How you doing, boss? How you doing?
I'm well. How you doing? What you got for me?
Good, bro. I just got back from work. I was just tuning in right now, you know.
Cool, cool. Well, we have the recording that will be posted later. If you missed any of these pairs.
Did you go over New Zealand CAD?
New Zealand CAD? I won't be going over that. There's really nothing of importance to talk about. And that's something that we all should be practicing, guys. So like if there's, even if you trade NZD CAD or if you trade any pair, if there's nothing of interest, just move on, right? I know many people before, like when we did live sessions months and months ago, or even last year, I would say, oh, there's nothing of interest that I like. They're like, oh, just talk about anyways. Why would I want to talk about something that there's nothing on? And I'm not saying that's the case for NZD CAD for you, but for me, there's personally nothing. There could be nothing for like something like G-Chef, right? That I have nothing on. Some people trade GBP Swiss franc. And I definitely look at it for those of you who do trade it. But again, there's really nothing of interest for me to talk about. So all the ones that you see that are highlighted, I have analysis for. Everything that you don't see highlighted, I just won't be talking about.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Let's see, any other questions, guys?
Well, yeah, I do have a question actually. What's your favorite pair right now?
What's my favorite pair right now? That I'm like my favorite setup this week?
Yeah, I guess. Is that like in your actual like a pair like you like to trade?
Either Euro USD or USD CAD. USD CAD, in my opinion, has the prettiest looking setup right now. I haven't gotten to it yet, and I will in a little. But yeah, I like EU and UCAD, just everyday trading. But again, guys, here's the thing. All these setups that I'm talking about, stuff could change throughout the week. Price could easily do something like this. Price could easily come down, sweep this entire low that we just talked about before, chop around, do a sell to buy, take the liquidity, even these lows in here, break counter trend structure, and that could be a setup. But how do I know this is going to occur throughout the week? I have no idea. I can only play off of what the weekend is showing me, where prices closed and what previous price is done. So if you want to keep up with this analysis throughout the week, I think I've sent probably 30 or 40 pieces of analysis last week. Absolutely killed it. But again, all this stuff, most of it was, you know, from last week's Sunday's live session, most of it played out well. But there's other stuff that happens throughout the week that I can't tell you what's going to occur because it hasn't happened yet. It could just simply be a Wednesday morning London session manipulation. Obviously, I have no clue what's going to happen Wednesday, but if something occurs, then, you know, obviously those of you in my VIP group will obviously get that update, but this is what I can show you now. So yeah, guys, I mean, I would highly recommend checking it out. I don't sell my VIP just by itself. It'll definitely help you, but it's not my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to get you guys to do this full time, get you guys funded. And what I have to do is root you exactly in the education that I provide. You have to know exactly how I trade, or else my VIP won't help you as much. If you know how I trade through my courses and stuff, you'll know how I teach, you'll know how I break down charts, and that will be much easier for you to take advantage of the analysis we send out, apply it to your own, and then slowly start to develop these skills through my mentorship over time. But yeah, definitely EU, UCAD, would be of interest to me. Those are good pairs to start off with if you're new to smart money. Obviously, every single pair, every single asset class, every single market trades based upon liquidity and volume and everything. But what's easiest to pick up on, what forms the most pretty looking setups that a beginner could recognize, probably would be through Euro USD and USD CAD.
Cool. How come you don't trade in US 30 like in NAS 100 and stuff like that? Any of the indices?
Because I don't like the way it moves. I like when pairs wave and they have beautiful sponsored candles at the right times of day. The manipulation on Forex pairs is a lot better. It's more fluid, it's more smooth. You'll see more of these type of setups than you would anywhere else. Liquidity taken, right time of day, break, BOS, pullback, sponsored candle, and bounce. It just looks prettier. The Forex manipulation presents setups a lot better than anything else. That's why, Bitcoin, for instance, like how are you going to trade that? Like I don't know. I don't like the way it moves at all. Same thing with US 30. I mean, yes, I have a setup on US 30 originally because it formed a very beautiful setup, but really anything in here, I don't know. I just don't like the way it moves. And that's just me. It may work well for you or anyone else out there, but for me, it's not really my personality. I try to stick to Forex pairs. All right, guys, I'll continue here. I don't want to waste any more time. Get through the rest of the pairs, and then we'll call it a day. So with NU, start off with the higher time frame. NZD USD, we're looking very similar to all the other GBP USD or USD. We've already come into higher time frame levels. So again, my area on the weekly time frame, my area of demand is right here. And we did come into that very beautifully. And we're starting to see reactions now, right? We have equal lows. And I said this on last week's live session, those of you who remember. We had the reaction last week. We closed right here, something like that. We closed bullish. Or excuse me, it was right here. We closed bullish. But I said all the other XXX USD pairs still had room to go to the downside. We haven't reached the objective yet, which is why I said it may look as if this is a clear sell to buy reaction from the level, which it is a very strong reaction. But I said, don't be surprised if we come lower and take it out, which is exactly what we did. We formed equal lows. I'm not done with sells here. I still think we're going to come deeper into this higher time frame area of interest before potentially going long. So following with the structure, we have lower low, lower high, lower low. We have two areas of interest. One of them I'm already currently in profit on. We have the draw on liquidity when we were pushing up into our level. This acted as the draw, meaning equal highs, liquidity resting above these highs for the institutions to take, free up liquidity to then short. We have sell side liquidity here that we're looking to target. So this gives us more confluence of sells because that would be the target to take, right? So lower time frame, go to the 15-minute. Following structure, this is really our last buy to sell. We can see in here that we had higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Reaction off the demand failed to make the higher high, we made the lower low. So this turns and flips to supply now, and we can see that even this wick high right here did not come up into that last buying volume before the sell-off. So technically, we have two areas of supply, here and here. We had a reaction on Friday, very beautiful reaction. We fell, but then we started to trickle back up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ran this high to start the week. So this is why I've been saying throughout this whole live, this week is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to sit on my hands until I see some setups. We've already come down and hit our higher time frame objectives across the board. The reason why price provided me with so many different setups these past 2 weeks is because, well, one, there were setups in my direction. Two, it hadn't hit the overall objective higher time frame, which gave me more conviction that we're going to continue to, XXX USD continue to fall. But now that we've hit these higher time frame regions like NZD USD, Euro USD, it's like, even though we're still bearish, could we see an overall pullback? We could. So it's just kind of tricky. But right now, I am still looking for shorts. These are equal lows that we will run. We've come up into supply. I would like to just see, you know, continuation short, not even come above this level. But if we come any higher, this is still valid for me, this level. But really just looking for, I don't know, some sort of buy to sell, sweep of liquidity, break of the counter trend to confirm shorts even on the lower time frames, and I can take it further short, right? So something like that. I'm already in this trade short here. I have a small order at 62275, but we'll just have to wait and see if we can get any intraday plays to short off. It's kind of just tricky right now. USD CAD. So USD CAD is definitely a short for me, at least to start the week. We are quite bullish, and I have multiple levels in which we can potentially come down into sell side. We could respect the structure here coming into imbalance. I'll show you this lower time frame in a minute. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Could do that. Or we could run this low, fill up some imbalance, and come down deeper into our overall objective here. Why? Well, we're just forming higher highs, higher lows. Higher high, higher low, back down into this region of demand that we called out before that came into 1.25. This region of demand that accumulated, that swept these equal lows coming into this demand. So much confluence for it, but really this is the structure. This is the range. This is the low that produced the higher high here, right? So technically we could do stuff like this all day, do something like that. That doesn't mean we're bearish because we broke structure. This just becomes the range from here to here. This would be the overall pullback to continue long. So buys are definitely in place until we break this low. That's the structure. So even if we close below this level here, we would still be bullish higher time frame because this would just be an overall retracement, in my opinion. But we could go long from our demand imbalance region, pull back, higher high. Could we pull back and go higher high again? Sure. So any selling that occurs, probably want to take partials in this level. If we continue, you can hold a runner for shorts down into 1.2686 or 1.261, but most of your position should be off here. Now, we swept this high by a few pips, right? We swept it, we pulled back, we failed to make the higher high, we made the lower low. So now we're in the pullback phase, right? Low, one drive, two drive, looking for that third drive all the way down, right? So scaling in, we have, in my opinion, I have two levels. So pullback, lower high, lower low. Pullback, lower high, lower low. Let's look for the pullback, lower high, and lower low again. Right in here, we swept liquidity. Ascending liquidity, we had the last buy to sell. Okay, this is the last buying volume before the sell-off that created this high, this high, this high, this high, this high. A lot of liquidity building up prior to that level, right? We break counter trend structure here, enticing the sellers, push right back up, sweep the liquidity, come into that supply level, wick it, and then fall, make the lower low, closing below our structure. So now we would naturally expect a pullback, lower high, to then create a lower low into our area of demand. Okay, so where is that pullback going to be? Well, we have two areas of interest. One would be the first, 1, 2, 3 pin pattern imbalance really between this wick and this wick here. So anywhere in here, 1.3 would be nice. That's a psych level. I'll mark that off too. 1.3. And then 1.30085 would be that full fill because this would be the level in which we swept liquidity and we created that imbalance. There's also a 2-hour time frame. This 2-hour time frame level, I'm going to get rid of all the drawings here. This is the supply because this candle formed the liquidity sweep. That candle right there would be the supply level. If I go to the 3-hour, it's really not that pretty. Don't see anything. 4-hour, nothing. 1 hour, not that much. But 2-hour, we still have that unmitigated, unmitigated, but also the imbalance here as well. So I'm going to get these drawings back. So the low here in this candle, 1.29837, could be a region in which we come into and then fall again if we don't get a deeper retracement. So one potential level, two potential level at 1.3, and then our last one at that 20-minute candle is our third potential area of interest, 1.300850. So looking for pullbacks to short into that, let's call it 1.287 region. USD Swiss franc, honestly, I don't know if it's worth talking about at the moment. It's really not. It's just going to confuse a lot of people. There's just too much conflicting bias. Let me skip that one. NZD Swiss franc here. Okay. All right, this could be interesting. Yeah, all right, this is good. Daily time frame. We have daily time frame liquidity. Here. Even though we did sweep this low by a pip, it is a liquidity run. So we could probably naturally expect a pullback, but it's relatively equal. We're still in a downtrend. I still want to come lower. We still have areas of interest in here that we could target. But overall, I mean, we're bearish, right? Lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. We're continuing to fall lower and higher time frame. So I want to be looking for continuous sells. We've just broken structure. We've created a new lower low. So naturally, we could expect a pullback. So I have two, well, really three potential levels. One, we have relatively equal highs. We're going to go and take that. One would just be a retest of the prior low here, which also is the prior low here. So just retest of market structure. The other one would be this daily time frame supply. And again, this is just kind of in the middle of the range here. So we really would like to see some sort of reaction first, but this would be still valid. We also have the daily 50 that's approaching. We're obviously bearish, so we could still be looking for shorts in and around these regions. If we come up any higher, this low here would be nice. This is the start of the last buy before the sell-off that we have an imbalance in. So if we get an overall pullback, really from this high to this low, we could see that 61, 71, 78 premium region of price be fulfilled. And then on the daily time frame, I guess you can say we have this daily supply within the overall region of supply in here. We can just see that here. So two levels right here. I really want premium price, so I really prefer anywhere up in here. Well, we could react off that daily time frame supply and potentially either just have some sort of buy to sell continuation if we come up into our previous market structure here. So keep an eye on those levels. 3 levels there. If you want to just take a picture, jot that down really quick. What we could also see, and this is also something, if we don't want to just simply place a sell limit here, which you would have to have a pretty big stop loss for, you could see some sort of buy to sell. We have a beautiful counter trend going on. High, low, high, low, high. Could see a low, could see a high, I don't know, break structure, pull back, short, something like that, just to confirm it. That would be something I would look for. And again, nothing is really pretty this week, guys. Not a lot is showing itself as really looking good. But we could just take these levels of interest and understand our bias and maybe look for reactions from them throughout the week and continue to trade. GJ. Okay. So GJ is interesting. It's interesting because we are very bullish, but we're also counter trend bearish. It's weird. As I'm going to go into this, it's going to sound really weird. Overall, we want to come up into that 180 level, 184, 188, just higher time frame supply. Okay, so I think that's where we're going next. If price ends up falling all the way down, I will still be looking for buys at 155. Okay, this is the last demand zone, that filled demand that took liquidity, that created the high here, right? This could act as liquidity. We never came into it. So if we come any lower, I'll still be looking for buys in this region of price. For the lower time frame, we are bullish though. And here we came into the demand perfectly. We accumulated, we broke counter trend structure, and then we pulled back. Head and shoulders, kind of, something like that. Let's go to the 1 hour. We pushed down into our region of demand right in here. I had a long trade from the imbalance from our last sell to buy that swept liquidity. This occurred at 8 in the morning EST. So that was, I think, actually 7 in the morning EST, prime New York session. Had the reaction, mitigation occurred at 10 a.m. Perfect. Rallied, ended up getting stopped at break even. I originally had my stop below the low, but since I was in really good profit and we were just kind of trickling, I was like, okay, well, probably won't come below this low here. We ended up coming below it, but we still maintained our structure. Why? Because this is the structure here. Higher high, higher low. Until we break this low, we're still bullish. We didn't break the low, even when we came down into here, and now we're still rallying. We kind of accumulated lower time frames. So could we see some sort of break of counter trend structure to the upside and continuation? Sure. This is the structure in which we want to break. If we close above this level, we're bullish again. So let's go down to a lower time frame. Remember that where this came into, and I'm just going to mark this off with a horizontal line at the very, very bottom of the low. Okay, so let's go 160.4. It's a round figure. Now let's go into here. Let's go into this low even further. All right, actually, I think it's the 4-minute time frame. Yep, 4 minute. This is why it's so important to go through each and every time frame, because you never know which one is going to look the prettiest. So obviously we know this huge blue box was our overall demand. Okay, we created equal lows. We have a low. I'm actually going to get rid of the horizontal line now. From here to here, we pushed up. We had our last engulfing sell to buy, and that's when we went long. So this really becomes the demand. This is the sponsored move. Even though it's the last sell before the buy, no wick whatsoever, immediate strong push, and immediate engulfing right back to the upside, sweeping these equal lows, coming further into our overall demand. This is where I'm going to be looking to buy from, right? So this would be, I'm going to put it right there at the open. Let's go back out. That's exactly where we came into, and we accumulated in price, as we can see here. So we're rallying now. We're still technically higher time frame bullish. We didn't take this low yet. So could this be the low of the month? It really could be. And this could just be the start of a big continuation push, as long as we get back above this level. However, technically we're still bearish here, counter trend. But many people will be like, well, we already came into the objective. We were bullish higher time frame. This doesn't higher time frame trump lower time frame. It does. But what's confusing is the fact that we haven't come back down into here yet, which makes me think that the counter trend here could still be valid for continuation pushes down. It's really tricky, and it's something that's hard to explain. But what I'll be looking for are potential shorts from this buy to sell. I really hope it just goes long, confirms my bias. But if we get some sort of reaction here, some sort of buy to sell from it, I'll be looking for shorts. However, we did accumulate. We swept equal lows. We accumulated in price. Bing, bang, bang. We sprung above market structure. Market structure. Created the higher high. So maybe if we come down and we break structure here, and we come down, maybe sweep these lows. I don't know. Just create some sort of liquidity. Sell to buy. We could be looking at pulling back and going long again, because this would be the low. So again, it's very tricky right now. Nothing looks really, really pretty. We're just going to wait and see what price gives us. I would like to see a break of structure that would confirm longs. Now we can be looking for longs for the remainder of the week. But again, we are bullish. However, we're still technically counter trend bearish. It just makes everything very confusing right now. So can't really give you an exact area of interest or setup on this. You just kind of have to wait and see what happens throughout the week. And as we go, then we can potentially take a trade if it presents itself. USD JPY. Now, I've had so many trades off of these levels in here the past week. Higher time frame, we need to come up into that higher time frame level. 138, anywhere between 138 and 140 would be nice. Let's go to the weekly. Obviously, you guys know this. We have the weekly imbalance in here, between here and here. Okay, last point of return, essentially. We swept this high. What's interesting is that we swept the high, and we're maintaining ourselves above it. We didn't just wick it and then continue short. We're maintaining ourselves above it, and I think we're going to continue up into that imbalance, higher time frame. So continued longs is expected. 4-hour time frame, we're making higher highs, higher lows. Let's go to the 1 hour. So as we can see, demand filled, break above counter trend structure here, pull back, demand filled, accumulated. We bought it from here and here, these two levels. The reason why I didn't buy it from, well, I did buy it from this level, but the reason why I didn't send this out to my VIP crew was because we already mitigated this demand. If this wasn't mitigated yet, then yeah, this would be valid, but this is already mitigated here. We ended up coming lower into it. That's okay. Stops were below the low, but I noted that this demand here and then this tiny demand here could be areas, but we had reactions. I actually did buy a small position here and I'm in good profit. We broke the counter trend structure, 15-minute time frame, broke counter trend here, right? So now we're bullish. Struck the range is from here to here. We shouldn't be coming below this low. Retail head and shoulders. Obviously, we knew that's a good confluence for us because we're looking to buy. They're looking to short. We observe the masses. We do the opposite. Sells into it. People are selling below the neckline. Cool. We buy it. Boom. Right back to the upside. Why? Well, not only is it retail head and shoulders, we want to go against them, but we have confluence for buys. We're market structure bullish. We broke counter trend structure after accumulating into demand. We have this last sell to buy, and we also have a 5-minute demand zone. This repricing for continuations bullish. So this is the demand, and that's exactly where we came into to the T. And we ended up rising from there. So what becomes the range now? The low here, this low produced this high. So we really shouldn't be coming below this low. So I want to see further continuations to the upside. We have equal lows in here. We have this 1-minute time frame sponsored candle. This could be interesting. What else is it? Shoulder, head, shoulder. Sell. Ties to sellers, nope, right back to the upside. It's kind of a little bit in here as well. Shoulder, head, shoulder, break, retest. Can't believe that. Break, retest, fall, nope, right back up. So this is an area of interest I'll be looking for, 135.67 below these equal lows. That's liquidity to start the week. 15 minutes. So I will be looking to buy from 135.675. Let me go back down, 10-minute. We also have a 10-minute buy to sell. Now, we are bullish, so I will only sell from this level if we sweep these equal highs here at the right time of day and break counter trend and not come into this level. If we do something like this, I could look for sells because this could be classified as supply. Equal highs. If we buy to sell, so a strong bullish push, strong bearish push at the right time of day, so it has to be seen in London and New York session, into the level, break the counter trend structure and not come into this yet, I could see a pullback for a short down into that 1-minute level. Could be a potential, but again, who knows what's going to happen? We just have to adapt to what we see. Any movements that happen throughout the week, we'll look for our setups because we know that we have our specific rules in place. But overall, looking for buys on UJ. NJ, NJ is a little tricky. It's similar to AJ because we came into our region of price, our areas of sell, our sell regions on Friday. So we could easily just run the high from Friday, come higher. I'm in a pretty much break even, maybe a couple pips to draw down here. I sold it from this region, had good profit, right back to the upside. And then we can see our 15-minute tiny level of supply right here that failed to make the higher high. We made the lower low. So this flips to supply now. We can see that these highs were run just by a few pips, buy to sell, failure to make that higher high, lower low. So this turns supply. So two levels. You have this level here and this level here. This is a prior demand zone that once we broke through, it flips to supply now. That's why we have the reaction, but we're continuing to push higher. We have equal lows here. We also have equal lows here. And we have the higher time frame demand in here. So I would still like for price to push down into here before we go long, but we'll just have to see what happens. Again, it's just confusing right now. We did buy it here from last week because Equal lows were taken, sell to buy, counter trend was broken. We pulled back into our zone of interest. I think it was 10-minute imbalance and sponsored candle. The sponsored candle was created at 2 in the morning. So London session manipulation, sell to buy, beautiful entry, take profit, was at that supply zone. Perfect. Take profit as well. Why did I buy it here? Well, what if price came into here first? Well, then I wouldn't have bought it, but it didn't. It didn't even take this liquidity. So we know this is our objective, and we didn't even take liquidity here, but we did sweep these equal lows. So this is still valid for a buy when we bought it here. If we swept this liquidity coming into this blue box, I don't care how many confluences I have for buys. Even if we sold to buy, pulled back, I wouldn't have bought it. Or excuse me, I would have bought it, but I wouldn't have sold it here. That's what I meant to say, because the objective would have been met, right? So okay, I guess I misspoke. Regardless of if we came into here or not, the buys would still be valid, right? Because we're looking to buy here anyways, lower or higher time frame. But if we came into this objective first, the sells from these levels would have been off the table. But the sells are still valid because we have equal lows. We have equal lows here and the objective here. It's just a matter of when are we going to go short? Are we going to go short right when market opens? Or are we going to pull back a little bit? Heck, we could even sweep this high, maybe come up into this region of price, very similar to AJ, something like that. But ultimately what I'll look for is, even if we do something like this, just some sort of reaction down and then pull back, and I'll short it off again, right? Because it just can be a higher time frame retracement, right? Maybe some sort of liquidity run for then continuations again. Hopefully I'm making sense to all of you. If I'm confusing you, send me a message. Just ask me a question. I don't care what you do, but get the help you need, because I'm here to help you guys. I may be confusing at times with my analysis, but again, this whole week is going to be confusing because the analysis I did over the weekend was tough, because it was just, we're in such difficult regions of price right now, especially upon this past week's closure and the fact that we've come into a majority of all the pairs higher time frame objectives, which just makes it difficult. GBP NZD was really nice. This is also quite confusing as well, because we swept liquidity, right? The high was taken. We broke the counter trend. Descending liquidity was taken, buy to sell. We came up into supply. Okay. The supply that we came up into was mitigated, pushed up into it, and we fell, making a lower low again, sweeping equal highs. 3 in the morning, buy to sell, London session manipulation up, pullback, retrace to start New York, and then continue for the rest of the day. Okay, that was on the 6th. So that was Wednesday last week. We pulled back ever so slightly. 15-minute time frame, 2 levels of interest. This region of supply and this one, because this push up didn't mitigate this supply level. So 2 regions of supply here. We came up into it initially, we reacted, and we pushed right back up again, hit our secondary level, and then absolutely died from there. So we're in profit on both of them right now. It is a little tricky because technically we did sweep the low here, and we are starting to push back up. And we're higher time frame, well, not higher time frame, but counter trend, we're bullish. So could we see a higher high? Yeah, we could. But we came into a region of supply distributing in price, and we reacted. This wick that swept this high also came deeper into our spring level right there, into supply there. Kind of confusing, but overall, we could be pushing back up further, filling up this low resistance liquidity run that we're seeing. But, you know, just based upon the confluences that we had surrounding that Friday New York London session, I still would appreciate shorts just because of all the confluence that we've seen. And we got a nice reaction, but if we go long, you know, I am break even on the secondary entry. I have to leave the first one to give it room to breathe. But if we come up and run the high, oh well. But hopefully we can see continuation short. But again, a little confusing. Nothing pertinent at the moment for a new setup. AUD NZD, I think, will provide us with a nice setup this week. And this is my last pair before we are done for the day. 4-hour time frame. Again, if you were on last week's live, you would know 1.11750, 1.12 is that higher time frame liquidity. So we are going to continue to push higher on this pair. So we have to find long opportunities. We haven't hit the objective yet, even with this wick high here, right? We push back down into demand. We lower time frame, 1 touch, 2, 3, 4 touches. I'll just go lower time frame so you can see. I've talked about this so many times. Equal lows, fake breakout, fake break of structure. So we have equal lows. We expect us to go and take it. 4th touch, people are buying. Nope, sell to buy. Now we broke in counter trend structure after the liquidity run was met further into the objective region. So that we accumulated lower time frame. The last sell to buy occurred here. We came into that nicely with this wick. There's a wick in here, beautifully sweeping this low. I'll just put that right there. We can see the wick in here that swept this low, coming deeper really into this sell to buy that swept these lows in here, lower time frame, perfectly, right? So this wick is of interest now. These equal lows that formed after creates the draw on liquidity. 50%, there's a 50%, there's a sell to buy in here, and I just chose the 50%. That's exactly where it came into over here. But that's why it reacted from that region. We went long from that region, not just because of the overall demand level that was right here, overall structure, but also lower time frame, there's confluences in here as well. That's why price stopped exactly where it did in here. So we accumulated again. We finally sprung. So now we have 2 regions of price in which we're looking to buy from. I'm still currently in buys from here in this overall demand, but I'm looking to add to it. So we have actually 3 potential levels. 2 of them are right here, just this intermediate demand that we didn't push into first, and then the overall area of demand here that I would really like to see has imbalance in here as well. Only buying was offered with this candle. I still want to come and fill that imbalance a little bit. So these 2 levels are still valid. Even though we made a high and made a low, we finally made that higher high above this level. So this is the higher high. The range is still between here and here. Okay. Now, what if we just continue higher high, and just make a higher low, higher high? Could we do that? Yeah, sure. We could do that because we did accumulate in price. This is a very beautiful accumulation schematic. Selling climax, secondary test. We have the spring, we have the BOS. We make a low, we come down, sweep that low just by a few pips, reacting off of a lower time frame demand, and then rally. So really, if we buy anywhere in here, our stops would be below this low because this was the liquidity run that came into demand. We don't really need to put stop here. We can put stop below this low here. But once we finished accumulating, we then expanded very strongly to the upside. This started the expansion. Then we had the pullback continuations, right? So this demand level in here is of interest to me. So if we can come down and sweep liquidity, have some sort of sell to buy, I would be buying from that level and then looking for maybe an additional entry off of a break of structure pullback long, right? So this is still valid, but if we end up coming lower all the way down, then I'll still be buying from these 2 levels here. So AUD NZD is going to provide us with a really nice setup this week. Hopefully price gets back down into our regions. If so, we'll be looking to long. That's my only bias I have on AUD NZD until we reach at least 1.11750. So buys all day, all week until we reach this level. If it does just absolutely blitz to the downside and just die here, well, then that's all we can do. And then we'll just move on to a new setup. But these are looking really, really good for longs. So guys, I know some of this may have been confusing to you. It's confusing to me as well. We're just in regions of price that are, wouldn't say invalid, but they're just not the most highly probable, where we closed on a lot of these pairs on Friday at really weird levels. We've taken a lot of higher time frame liquidity. So I would say the past 2 weeks provided us with the most beautiful setups that we took advantage of. I personally did over 30% just because I've won so many trades and lost so few, but also because of the risk reward I had. But I don't expect this week to be the exact same. However, that doesn't mean that it won't be. We could easily find setups throughout the week that provide us with great trades, and I'm still going to be looking for them. We do still have quite a bit of trades that we could take advantage of. I just want to see how the week forms. I want to see the open of price in a few hours of the market before I decide to look to even trade. So I'm going to be waiting until at least New York session on Monday morning, and then we'll get cranking. Guys, if you have any questions, I don't have anything else for you today. If you're all good to go, thanks so much for joining in. I'll be posting the recording to our YouTube so you can take a look at it later. For those of you who joined late, But I'll take a few questions until I hop off. I'll stay on for like 5-10 more minutes, and then we'll hop off for the rest of the day. Any questions you guys have, just shoot them on over. I know there has to be something. Could be about a concept, could be about psychology. We are going to be coming out with a psychology course, I believe, within the next few weeks, maybe sometime next month, that I really think will benefit a lot of you. Because a lot of your trading has to do with psychology and not so much of your trading skills. I would say like 90% of trading is psychology. Because anyone can learn the technical, anyone can learn how to trade. How do you manage your emotions is the most difficult thing. But guys, if you're in VIP, I know a lot of you are. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names here. You'll be getting updates on all these throughout the week. So obviously, you know, do your best to do your analysis on your own so you can actually learn the skill yourself. You can utilize us as much as you can, but just know that you'll be getting updates on this, so don't worry about it. For those of you who are not in VIP, who are interested, feel free to book a call on our website. You know, we love to speak with you. We only have a few spots remaining for the summer. We'd love to for you to get you involved in this. Any last questions, guys? You know, it's been quite a long live session. Appreciate everyone who's taking the time to stay on with us. It's been about 2 hours.
I mean, I'm good with all the questions. I already asked what I got to.
Good deal. Perfect. Well, I appreciate you guys joining. I think we had one more. Make a giveaway. Man, you guys want handouts. I'll tell you what, I'll do a $25 giveaway. But guys, don't have that be the reason you guys get on these live sessions. You're here to learn, all right? Not for the free money. I can give away $1,000, $10,000, $100,000 all day long if I wanted to. That wouldn't help anyone at the end of the day. You know, learning the skill, you have this for the rest of your life. Let me figure out a question I could ask. I'll do a $25 giveaway for you guys. So since I did put that on my IG, let me think what I could ask. How about a course giveaway? Yeah, but you guys are funny. Can you make it more beginners friendly? Yeah, I can try to. It's just difficult because we have a lot of people with different levels of experience. That's why the courses would help you. If you haven't already taken that, I believe you have. And I know who you are. I think you have taken. If you haven't, I would recommend it just because that really gives you that step-by-step beginner's feel. Maybe I could make like a free smart money beginners course for those of you who currently are enrolled in our program. But most of the analysis that I do on a Sunday and that I speak about it are for people who kind of already have an understanding. But I wouldn't be opposed to making some sort of mini series about smart money that could help from a more beginner standpoint. Would be a bad idea. Yeah, no problem, guys. Yeah, so I tried to do a free VIP giveaway, course giveaway before, but I have to have a little respect for my work. My work is very valuable, so giving away something as easy on a live stream with that quality of value, just I don't feel comfortable doing that. Let's see, a question I could ask for an easy 25. All right, guys, so put it in the chat. Kind of similar to what we had last week. What is the first one to say it when it's only a one-part question? I just couldn't think of anything, so I'm going to say this. What higher time frame demand level am I looking for AUD USD to come into? What price? Nope, not 0716. 0716 is way up here. Looking for, I think I've already showed it. Whoops. What's the price I'm looking for price to sell down into? What's the overall higher time frame objective? Nope, not 708. So we're in the 6/8s, guys. We're in the 6/8s, 6/7s right now, actually. Looking for price to go lower. So you know it's in the 6s.
Isn't it 6680? 668.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Good job. Yeah, we're looking for price to come into 668. Why is that? The daily time frame, area of interest, imbalance, demand, sensitive region, higher time frame. So that would be the higher time frame target. I think you're thinking of that guy who said 7-1 something. Maybe you're thinking of a fib level. I was thinking of a price. Yeah, you know, you could be looking at pulling back up into the. I did talk about these two levels for potential shorts, but I'm talking about like higher time frame objective. You know, where we're looking to go now. You know, we're in bullish, or excuse me, bearish territory. So 668 is the correct answer. So yeah, bro, just send me a message on Telegram or IG. I'll get you 25. Congrats, guys. But remember, you know,
In the Discord, because I'm in the VIP. So should I just message you there?
yeah, that's fine.
I bet.
When you say you're looking for reaction, does that mean like equal highs or lows to be so community of a sponsor count? Good question. Okay, so what I mean by a reaction. So let's say that this is a good example here. Remember what we talked about with AUD USD about how, you know, we closed here Friday and we're already in that level of interest. We could see just a straight up open of the market and then just a continuation, which would be nice because this is our level. But if we come higher and we have multiple regions of price that we could potentially play from, there's a lot of a lot of confluence surrounding 693, right? So we have equal highs. This was our original area of interest first before all of this nonsense occurred, right? So what I mean by reactions, if we come up into this region of price, it could just be as simple as, you know, 15-minute, 30-minute, even hourly. If we have bigger pullbacks, you know, higher time frame would be like that, right? But we could scale into what's going on in here in the reaction, right? So go back down. And you don't have to play with it. It's not, I can't tell you like, oh, look at the 2-minute time frame, look at the 1 minute. You have to just do your own analysis, look through all the time frames, but scan through them. Oops. Scan through it lower time frame, and then maybe when we get up into here, there's some sort of, you know, equal highs that run into that level, buy to sell at the right time of day, break of counter trend structure and pull back. So I guess what I'm talking about, let's go to CAD chef. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So if that's my area of interest, let's say, and I don't know if it's going to react, so I don't just put a sell in, I would scale in. And this provided a great opportunity. Equal highs, buy to sell, right? Structure has been broken to the downside now. So we can be looking for pullbacks into premium, really back up into this sponsored move to be looking to sell it even further. So the liquidity was built up. We pushed into the level and then had a major reaction from it. So that's what we broke counter trend structure. So higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, we make equal lows, and then we took it and then we broke counter trend. So now we're bearish, now we're just looking for sell. So that's what I mean by reactions. And it's not always going to look this pretty. But if we even have like, we go to GBP NZD. Let's go here. I know I'm on the 1 hour time frame, but let's say this is like the 1 minute time frame, or like the 5 minute or the 3 minute or whatever. This would be my area of interest, let's just say, if I have multiple. I would wait for price to react. Okay. Here it's a little tricky because you did push up into it. You pushed down, you failed to make a higher high, and you made a low low. But what happened? You rallied back up. Sometimes that happens, and this isn't really pretty here, in my opinion, for a high. If we did something like that, see, it's hard to explain, but I still wouldn't have looked for shorts yet, because this is considered this is liquidity, a lot of liquidity that was built up. But I guess long story short was we would look for maybe distribution, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. And then we didn't make a lower low yet. We kind of made equal lows. We pulled back up into supply. I probably wouldn't have sold it here, but you would have seen that reaction. And that's where we had the break of structure. So now the lower time frame, I know this is a 1 hour, we'll say it's the 1 minute. The objective was met. Distribution occurred, we're slowing down in price. We broke the counter trend structure to the downside now. So now we're not bullish lower time frame, we're bearish. Now we can be looking for pullbacks to short off. And in here, see, it's not very pretty. I guess what I would look for is, lower low is met. See, there's nothing really in here that you can play off of. That's really pretty. You can't really play off this because you have liquidity here. You can't really play off this because that was already mitigated. So it's just tricky. You just have to play around with it. Everything's going to be different, but that's the general gist of it. You can also go to your indicators and look up VFI. VFI is volume flow indicator. It looks at volume price distribution. So if, for instance, right here, price is pushing up, but volume is pushing down. So that's volume and price divergence. It just indicates a potential reversal. And you can look at that when you're entering into your areas of interest to look for potential reversals from those levels. Yeah, guys, thank you so much. If you have to go, you're more than welcome to go. Just stay on for anyone else who has any questions. But yeah, that's correct. That's what I thought. Thanks. Yes, that's absolutely correct. You're right. That's what we would be looking for, but obviously on a lower time frame. So maybe, just maybe, this would be our level of interest. Let's just look at what happened in here over time and just see what we could have potentially have done. Okay, so maybe like something like this. You pushed up into it. There's really no counter trend to break. You come back up. Now you're forming the counter trend here. Higher high, higher low. Higher high, higher low. I guess you failed to make the higher high here, maybe react off some sort of tiny supply. You make the lower low. You pull back into supply here and you fall. I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's not really a good example. All right, guys, last questions, and I'll head out. Anything else? Do I have something for NASDAQ? I don't trade NASDAQ. I don't really trade US 30. I don't trade any of that. Sorry, guys. I don't like the way it moves. I like Forex pairs better. If you guys want a better understanding of the setups that I look for, I would say this live session didn't produce the best looking setup, so it was quite difficult for me to really discuss and go into all the concepts and what looks pretty for you guys. If you take a look at the recording on Trading Nut from last week's live session, those were really pretty looking setups. So maybe that would help you, especially if you're a beginner for smart money trader. That would definitely help you in your understanding of what I mean by valid versus invalid areas of interest, what I look for in terms of confluence. That would help you. This live session was a little tricky. There are a lot of setups, and I have my directional bias, but from a beginner standpoint, I can see how it would be more difficult to understand, especially talking through this week's setups. But thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I know it's been 2 hours. I really appreciate your time, especially on a weekend. All right, guys, well, take care. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your Sunday, and we will get cranking again on Monday morning for another killer week. So, guys, take care. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks, guys.